Welcome to Public House, intimate conversations with people making a difference in the Hudson Valley. And now, from Paula's Public House in Poughkeepsie, New York, here's Paula Young.
Hi everybody, I'm Paula Young. Welcome to this episode of Public House. I am beyond delighted that once again I was able to procure and convince our wonderful County Executive Marcus Molinaro to join us.
Well, in fairness, there's not a lot of convincing when it comes to me and cameras, but you know, the joke is the most dangerous place in Dutchess County is between me and a microphone.
Is that what they say?
Yeah,
okay, well I think
everything
everything that comes out of your mouth almost is really good.
Oh, well, thank you. Almost, yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We are in the midst of it.
Yeah, we are.
We have a world that has come to a screeching halt due to COVID. And you are the County Executive of Dutchess, and we are doing pretty good here.
Well, I mean, listen, we've had far too many people get sick. We've had 153 individuals in Dutchess County succumb to the disease. That isn't good. But I will tell you, the mission was to flatten the curve and slow the transmission. If that was the goal, we achieved that mission. Now, the goal, of course, now is to continue to be smart and considerate of one another. We don't want to have people get sick. And it's funny because, you know, the debate is about numbers. You know, well, the numbers go up, the numbers go down. These are human lives. We don't want people getting sick. If they don't need to be sick, they don't need to be in a hospital, certainly we don't want anyone dying. We don't want that to happen. So it's about being, I think, considerate as we move forward. But we are in the thick of it, still responding to a pandemic. Still dealing with real important civil and social issues, the midst of elections. I heard there's an asteroid pointed towards the planet.
Apparently, yes.
It's only 6 feet wide. Murder hornets. Honestly, 2020 is the year that just won't give up. But in all seriousness, there's just a lot that we're confronting that we have to be very, I think, thoughtful and deliberate about.
Well, 153 deaths, which is a tragedy, and yet in comparison to all of New York, it's very small. I know you lost your dad from COVID, which is very personal, and therefore you, I think, have a more specific understanding of what this really is about. I meet people who tell me, I don't know anybody who got sick.
Yeah.
I know dozens of people who've gotten sick and people who've passed away. The county health department, do they interface with you? Do they interface with the state and with the feds? How does that work? Explain.
It's interesting. Like with a fire, right? When there's a fire, the local fire company shows up. And when that fire is a few blocks, other local fire companies provide mutual aid. And if it's a whole neighborhood, well, everybody comes to every level of government, of course, responds. The same is for a public health crisis. However, the first line of response is, in fact, the county's health department. So we are the front line. And so from February of this year to today, our staff at the health department is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everything from setting up the testing and monitoring the cases coming in to working with hospitals to set up for emergency response. It is a full operation. So when the president talks about response, when the governor makes a decision, they're obviously not the ones doing any of it. Right. It is, in fact, county health departments, 1,900 of them across America, that are on the front line responding every day. And again, when the capacity is reached, right, when the emergency exceeds our capacity, then we need state involvement, we need federal assistance, and a lot to talk about there. But yes, we are that front line. So we're the ones communicating, we're the ones coordinating, and we're the ones interfacing between the other layers of government, local to federal, and those individuals affected, whether it's an individual family or a business that's shut down, trying to reopen, or an entire community. Now, I will say 153 deaths is 153 deaths too many.
Yes, it is.
We had a very strong response team. Worked with colleges, worked with hospitals.
That was going to be my next question,
homes.
right? How did we manage to contain it so well? How did your office manage to oversee that? That's a huge undertaking.
Well, unlike others, I'm not willing to celebrate any success. We had a lot of failures and there are a lot of missteps, I think, nationally, certainly, state, and even locally, that we need to learn from. I think there'll be time to reflect on that, and appropriately so. But we treated this as sort of a military operation. We actually created a sort of an internal structure, status reports every day, response teams all responding to and responsible to different leadership offices within county government, and we coordinated it as best we could from my office. So every area that you could point to, schools, a team working with public schools and private schools, a team working with colleges, a team working with hospitals, a team working with nursing homes throughout the county. We have a business and the economic development team. Ron Hicks ran our Dutchess Business Notification Network with the Chamber of Commerce. So we treated it as really as you would any other emergency, but much greater magnitude and sadly far too many impacted.
I do believe, though, that we have done, considering the density of the population and considering the neighbors, our neighbors Putnam and Westchester, I think we've done extraordinarily well. And speaking of Ron Hicks,
yeah.
I run a restaurant, I have two. It is very, very difficult to have a restaurant when I can have half inside, thank goodness for the garden. How are we going to do it come October, November, December?
Well, a couple things. First, we took the steps, and I give the governor credit in that he listened. We presented to the state a series of steps that would relieve some of the state liquor authority rules, some of the zoning that would allow for outdoor dining, and lifted some restrictions to make this easier. So we said we want restaurants running at 100+ capacity inside and outside. We are hopeful that as we transition into the colder months, two things. One, well, maybe the weather will hold up a little bit and we can extend outdoor dining as long as possible. And we'll have gotten to a point where some of the steps we have to take, like wearing face coverings and being sensitive to one another and spacing, we should be able to increase capacity indoors as we get closer to November into December. That is the goal and the expectation.
And is that something that you've heard?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even today the governor
great.
announced. So I've given a great deal of deference to the governor. We're all on the same team. We're trying to respond.
Yes,
there are things that I would be happy to criticize when the moments are appropriate. I wouldn't say in the midst of an emergency it is. There, I think, missteps that just are unfathomable to me. But I will say this. Again, the state has listened when we've argued. They've responded as effectively as they could when we've asked, and they've obstructed when maybe they felt they should. But even just today, for instance, the governor announces public schools can have athletic competitions starting in September. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we would have argued that's never happening. So you're going to continue to see, as we keep the positivity rate low, we're under 1%. A lot of people call it a transmission rate. It is not. It's merely a percentage of those testing
Right,
who
testing
test positive. Which,
right.
but that is more like the canary in the coal mine. It's a bit of a barometer. It's worse than that, if you follow me, right? It's only those who are tested, not necessarily who have it.
Because some people haven't, and they've just not been
correct.
tested.
And as we go on in time, sustaining testing is going to be tough. People are just going to, I'm going to cough, get sick, and maybe I won't be as sensitive to it as I was 2 or 3 months ago. They may never be tested. So anyway, but our positivity rate is staying low, below 1%, which is what we want. Hospitalizations ticking up a little bit, but we expected that as we entered into the late summer. School, colleges coming back, some social activities we knew we couldn't.
So schools and colleges coming back, it seems to be it's individual schools, individual colleges are making that decision. There's no one rule.
This is, I think, one of the missteps I would take issue with. I think private colleges, I have no problem setting sort of broad parameters, and then you make your decisions within those, so long as we understand what the safety steps. I mean, Marist College and Vassar, two good, really good. Every university in Dutchess has done a good job, but two good examples. Vassar is really an enclosure policy. You're on campus, that's it, you're not leaving. Marist said, we're going to give you a little leeway, but if you make a mistake, we're shutting it down. And Dr. Murray just announced, just yesterday, I think, 15 suspensions.
I saw that.
No fooling around. Those are the kind of steps you have to take to control it. Public schools, though, the state should have set one standard. I think it should have been a New York City, non-New York City standard. Like, what happens in the city has got to be different. Right. But instead allowed every district to come up with its own plan, and it created chaos and confusion and anxiety among everyone, from administration to students. That, I think, is a mistake and shouldn't be. That said, most districts in Dutchess have agreed to not starting in person for a period of time. Some are doing this hybrid model with some coming to school. We've provided, we don't have jurisdiction, but the county health department has provided guidance to those districts. We're answering questions, and we just announced on Friday we've been able to procure for them priority access to rapid testing. These are all the things that I think are necessary, and we're helping, but it's a little bit too disjointed for I think, it's just not the right way to do it. But it is the way it's happening, and we're providing the guidance.
It's like 52-card pickup or lots of puzzle pieces with no real picture to go with, and it's confusing. Okay, so now you're running a county. This is your last term. And you are trying to get things done. I know it. What are the next initiatives you've got that are not COVID related or that you're going to be able to accomplish despite of COVID?
First, absent federal assistance, everything is COVID related. I mean, the truth of the matter is we were never financially stronger than we were going into this crisis. Right. And we'll weather it, but we've set ourselves back quite a bit as a government and as a community. So that's the reality. So moving forward, though, we're going to make smart decisions. We're investing in some infrastructure. You're going to see highway and road repair. We think that's important. Some park investments. As you may know, we announced finally reaching an agreement with the city of Poughkeepsie to move forward with the demolition of the old Y, and then ultimately the building of a youth opportunity
center. And you've
center.
Actually committed $1 million.
$25 million.
$25 million.
25 million. And for those listening and watching, this isn't new. We've been talking about this for several years now. Mayor Rolston and I came to the agreement. It makes sense. And for Dutchess County, what we know is if we invest in young people early, we can divert them from needing
Absolutely.
the support of social services, needing the remedial school and education, addressing healthcare issues. If we've ever learned anything about the fragility of both life and our healthcare system, we've learned it these last few months. And we've been able, if we can invest early enough, we can keep kids out of jail. And so from us, it's creating a path from birth to employment. And this is countywide. This isn't like there may be some rec center benefits, and there will be those kinds of things. But from the county's perspective, this is centralizing the delivery of all of our youth-related services to truly make a difference in the life of young people.
If everything that I have ever read is accurate, it's if you can take a child and keep him on the right path, you're never going to have a criminal.
Well, true, but in the same respect, families need to not have to go through a labyrinth of services.
Exactly.
This will centralize that.
Exactly.
And listen, no matter how well we do this, government still functions in silos. We learn that. I mean, the federal government does one thing, the state does something else, and agencies within those layers of government function in silos. This will allow the integration of the full delivery of service. So we'll know if your kid was in one program and struggling, maybe it's another program that picks that child up and helps. If it's a family who's just merely trying to get access to tutoring or mentorship, it's rather than having them fend for themselves, we'll create this central hub of delivering service.
So this model could also be applied to every public school.
Well, it's a model that we already know works. It's the stabilization center that we have for mental health services, for youth services. It is the law enforcement transition center in the criminal justice system to prevent people from entering the criminal justice system. We know that if we can break down the barriers between layers, levels, and agencies in government and providers and really centralize and really invest in a shared delivery, we can make a difference. And this isn't about handing things out. It's making sure that kids along their path towards success, if there are moments of failure, moments of weakness, that we're there to help.
Absolutely. And I completely think this is the start of a beautiful friendship, as it were, you and that. Yeah. When is the groundbreaking?
So we hope the city council needs to give the county the authority to share ownership. It's the only way that we're allowed to borrow money. I can't borrow county dollars and invest unless we have ownership stake. We're not asking for more than that, just joint ownership. Assuming that happens, we think we can get demolition done this year, design done early next year, and we can begin the process of developing in 2021.
Okay, next
which I spell, by the way, 2020NE, 2021.
That's very cute. Now, forgive my ignorance, but okay, so you're gone, unfortunately.
Well, no time soon. Don't run me out of town.
But you're gone, and then the next guy or the next girl, she has to maintain this, right? She can't say, oh, I'm changing my mind.
Well, if we borrow the money, he or she will have to maintain it.
Good.
So our goal is to get the contract done, to make the investment. But the same is true for other investments. We've made smart investments in public safety, investing in law enforcement and the Justice and Transition Center. Not only financial savings, but investing and trying to get people on the right path. We've invested in mental health services, creating the only network of its kind in America. And we're going to continue to do those things. So, but as with everything else, when your time's done, your time's done.
Well, I hope your time's not done for a very long time. I'm not going to ask you what your next plans are, as long as you promise that some of those next plans will be shared with me.
I'll share them, but I'll say two things. One, I work like I'm running out of time, so I'm not, I got a lot of time still. We have a lot of work to get done.
Absolutely.
And I love public service. These last 5 months have made it very clear to me that there are layers and levels of government who need good and decent people who are less concerned about making sure the other side loses and more interested in making sure we all win. So if the public will allow me, I'll remain in public service.
From one Girl Scout to a Boy Scout, I'm so glad you do what you do. Thank you so much for coming. This was so informative. As always with our county executive, he has his finger on the pulse and he's beating the drum and he's also talking the talk and walking the walk, as it were. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again. Well done. I can't shake hands. I can do this.
Hi, I'm Paula Young, and I'm the proprietor here of Paula's Public House. Do join me for good food, good cheer, and good fellowship. We are here, we have fun, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Come on down.